Yes, God is real. He's real in my soul. Yes, God is real, for I can feel Him in my soul.
From the studios of Whitewater Community Television, welcome to Beyond the Church Walls Outreach Ministry. My name is Reverend Martel Winburn. I am the host of Beyond the Church Walls. We have a little different type of show scheduled for you today. As a rule, all shows are religious shows, but ever so often we like to reach out to the community and bring community leaders in so they can express their views on their goals and what they're trying to do in the community to make it a better place to live. So today we have with us the police chief of the City of Roses, Chief Kyle Weatherly, and he has some officers with him. So we're just going to have a real sit-down interview with these three officers, and we're going to talk about Richmond Police Department and the chief, what goals that you have and what areas that you want to improve as far as Richmond Police Department. We have with us, so will you help me welcome, first of all, will you help me welcome Chief to the show today? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And could you tell us a little bit about yourself? Or you married, or what did you start in law enforcement?
So I am married. I'm married to my wife, Ann Taylor. So I started in law enforcement in 2001. I hired into the jail with the Wayne County Sheriff's Department.
You're a jail deputy.
I was a jail deputy. Started as a correctional officer back in 2001. I stayed there until 2007 when I transferred up to the enforcement division. And then I have been there since all the way up until the end of 2000.
In the enforcement division, were you a road deputy or?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I held many different titles. So I started out as a patrol officer with the enforcement division, moved into investigations. I was a detective for many years, went back out onto the patrol division as a supervisor, then moved back into investigations as a supervisor. And I was there for a few years before leaving and coming to the Richmond Police Department.
And who do you have with you today?
So today I brought with me Assistant Chief Adam Blanton and Detective Pat Tudor.
And could you share with our audience a little bit about yourself, or how long you've been in law enforcement and your marriage and children?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am married to my wife, Lindsay. She is a nurse practitioner and the glue of my family. So she's what keeps me and my three kids together. So I started in law enforcement in 2012. I actually am from Ohio, so near Springfield, Ohio. I went to the Ohio Police Academy, started working there, and before that I was actually a nurse. So I was a nurse, a pediatric and medical surgical nurse at Reed Hospital. That's where I met my wife at. After I graduated the Ohio Academy, I determined that my wife was worth following. So I moved to Indiana, and then I got on with the Wayne County Sheriff's Office. And I spent up until this year at the Wayne County Sheriff's Office, and then I also have worked some time with the Hagerstown Police Department.
Now, you were RN?
I was an LPN.
LPN.
Yep.
Now, as a member of the Sheriff's Department, was you able to, as far as jail deputies and things like, was you able to use your talent as
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That came in very handy.
I would tell people that the career field of nursing and law enforcement are a lot more alike than anybody would ever give them credit for. So they're both dealing with people, understanding people in times that are really good and times that are really, not so great. So I really attribute a lot of the police officer I am today to my time as a nurse.
Well, my name is Patrick Tudor. I'm a detective with the Richmond Police Department. I just finished up my 26th year. I'll have 27 years on in February. I have a wife named Amy. She's my high school sweetheart. She's a teacher at Northeastern Elementary. I have two boys that I'm very proud of. One is a second grade teacher locally here at Rose Hamilton Schools. And then my other son is a firefighter paramedic for the Richmond Fire Department.
Now, you say your wife is a teacher?
She is.
What does she teach?
She was in the classroom for about 15 years, and now she does reading recovery, so reading intervention with the early students.
Well, that's interesting. One of my neighbors across the street from me, Trent Pipes. Yeah, he left the department and went back to teaching just a couple years ago. We were talking the other day, and he said that he still has a strong desire. He still misses the police department, and so that was a very, very, very difficult decision for him to make. Well, good. I'm kind of interested in what you said about the State Police Academy of Ohio. So you were able to transfer all that over to?
No, so I actually went to both.
So you went to both?
Yeah, so the Ohio Academy, at the time, when you had to transfer, you had to have a year of full-time paid experience. Well, when I started in law enforcement in 2012, in order to be a reserve police officer in the state of Ohio, you have to be Academy certified. So it's not like a 40-hour pre-basic or kind of how we do it in Indiana. You had to be a full-fledged police officer just to be a volunteer. So at that time, I went through there. I was on a wait list to get a job as a police officer in Ohio, so I wasn't paid. So when I got on at the sheriff's office, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, I had to go back to the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy and completed the academy there as well.
Now, Chief, my homework tells me that the Richmond Police Department was established in 1834. Is that pretty close?
That's pretty accurate.
And at that time, it only had 2 police officers.
Correct.
And today, how many officers is on the Richmond Police Department?
So currently we have 68 officers on the department.
68 officers on the
68.
department. Are you undermanned or?
We are. We do have, we are contracted for 76 sworn officers. So we have 8 openings. We currently have 62 male officers and 6 female officers.
Okay.
So we do have a few that actually we have 1 left that is waiting a hire date. We just ran a process for new hires, and we have some strong applicants that are trying to get onto the agency to either start or continue their career.
Okay. That takes me to my next question is what method are you using to recruit officers, new officers?
So what we really do in today's day and age, most people get their information from social media. So Adam has really expanded our reach on Facebook, and we use Facebook for just about everything. There are some people that apply through Indeed and some of the other sites such as that, but Facebook is really something that we utilize to our benefit.
Is there a incentive to applying for Richmond Police Department? I know some cities says, you know, there's a $10, $20, or $1,000 reward offered if you join the Indianapolis Police Department or something. Or do we do anything like that here?
So the incentive that we offer is something that Adam kind of came up with on his own, and that's just to be part of the best. That's the incentive, to be part of the best. We don't offer sign-on bonuses or anything of that nature.
That's the one I wanted to get at, bonuses.
Yeah, we don't offer the sign-on bonuses.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of glad to hear that you don't.
Yeah. So we want people to
have the desire to
be a
want to
part
be a
of
law enforcement officer.
Something special with Richmond Police Department.
Well, that's good. What are the requirements to apply for Richmond Police Department?
So we take anybody between the ages, you have to be 21 at the time of graduation from the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy, and you have to be under the age of 40.
Under what?
Under the age of 40.
40.
Yes.
So I'm a little too old to be a police
Yeah,
officer.
yeah. We'll find a spot for you somewhere if you really want. We'll get you set up. Then you have your physical requirements. You have to be able to do the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy physical fitness standards.
Now, after a trainee has completed the academy and they go on duty, are they under the tutorage of a senior officer?
Oh, most definitely. We have a field training program that they are required to complete successfully before they are released on their own. That is a 12-week program, and they will essentially be assigned to several
So a
different
training officer.
officers. Yes. And we do that for the simple fact that we want them to see and experience how different officers handle certain situations. That way they're not getting, well, this is one way of doing it. It's the only way of doing it. They want to see how this person does it. The next person may do things just a little bit different as long as it's within policy. And they get that exposure to the many different types of officers that we have.
Now, my next question is for the three of you. And I understand the chain of command, but I'd like to start with Pat. We're going to talk about community relationships. And I know that you're trying to take the department in a certain area that will improve the relationships between the community and the police department. Mm-hmm. But I would like for all of you to share with our viewing audience on your views on public relations and where you like to see the police department go and what you'd like to see us do to bridge the gap of communication that may or may not exist between the community and the Richmond Police Department. Could you speak on that?
Yeah, I think, over my roughly 27-year career, when I hired on back in 96, I went through the process in 96 and again in 98. I sat at Richmond High School in the cafeteria with about 275 other applicants. And they were only looking at that time for 2 officers. So they would take and complete a list of the top 20 applicants, and that list was good for about 2 years. So if you were fortunate enough to maybe make it in the top 4 or 5 over that 2-year period, if a position became available, you would get a phone call and saying, hey, we have the position, are you still interested? That's no longer the case nowadays. We run a very competitive process because it is a competitive market. As the chief was saying, across the country, I think you're going to find shortages all across the law enforcement community where agencies are trying to fill spots. You can't compromise the quality of applicants that you get. They have to be, good applicants, good moral character, good ethics and such.
I'm glad to hear you say that.
Yeah, but
yes.
It makes it more challenging. I won't say it's difficult, but it does make it more challenging when you don't have 280 some people applying for a couple of jobs.
So the days of political hiring and hiring the good old boys, those days are long gone.
Now, we have a very strict process. I mean, our applicants apply. One thing that we have done as an agency recently, and again, it's something that's different, and it's different in the process that we have for our applicants. So it used to be traditionally that you would have to come to the police department, pick up a paper application that might be, 16 pages. It'd take you 45 minutes to fill out. Mm-hmm. You'd have to bring it back. Now, we actually have a QR code. So you can either go directly to our website, or we have a vehicle that has a QR code on it. You can scan it. That'll take our potential applicants to our website. They can fill the application out within 10 minutes, and that'll start the process. Okay. So even just making the process more mainstream, a little bit easier for the applicants, seems to benefit us as far as, because if other agencies are doing this and we're still doing things maybe the way we used to always do it.
Well, I'd like the two of you to answer this question. What are we doing to, as far as reaching out to the community and making the police department more accessible to the Richmond community, the everyday citizen?
Well, and again, I'll briefly just say that as under their leadership and their vision, I was looking at most likely retiring at the end of last year. One of their, things was, hey, we value recruitment, but we also value retention. We as an agency are pretty young. So, to have officers that have 25, 30 years that are leaving to go do other things, they found what I was passionate about. I've always been passionate about being involved in the community engagement side of things. And they said, hey, our vision is to have a full-time community engagement officer. So they basically said, hey, will you stay? And I said, 100%. So, we again created a division within our agency. It's called Police and Community Together, the PAC division. We have 4 personnel assigned to the division, and it's full-time community engagement. So all the community events that are going on within our city, we try to be part of. And then we also take the initiative to have our own events that we have scheduled throughout this year to, again, just building relationships, trust, transparency with our community. I mean, I don't know you and you don't know me if we can't sit down and we talk, right? You shared some stories, prior to the interview today, and until we can sit down and figure out who you are and I are as individuals and have trust and respect for one another, you can't bridge those gaps or those differences.
Well, both of my sons, I have twin sons, and as we know, they both are or have been deputy sheriffs. But they started out with the Explorer program. Is that still in effect? Do you still?
Well, of course, the assistant chief's looking at me because this is something that we are in the process of getting up and going. I've spent the last 2 months in all of our local high schools meeting with our juniors and seniors to see if, because again, I know that there are young men and women who want to serve in the capacity of law enforcement. I just feel like the fabric of America has changed over the years with social media. It's a profession that an officer can do something out in California today, and it can have an impact on my profession today.
Sure.
So with social media being the way that it is, and often things that are negative get highlighted more so, and the assistant chief has done a great job at highlighting the positive things that we're doing in the community and that our officers are doing.
Well, that's one of the reasons I wanted you on the show today, is because there's things that happen in other cities that impact what goes on here in Richmond. And we need to be able to overcome a lot of things that we had nothing to do with in the first place, and to reach out to community and say, we're here to serve you, we're here to help you. And
no one wants to be represented by one person,
put
right?
all the apples in one barrel. Yes.
Right. So, with our, PAC division, there's a strong emphasis on getting our cadet, much like what you refer to as the Explorers, having a program for 14 to 20-year-olds that are seeking a path or a career in law enforcement, and we basically bring them in and develop them into our next generation of officers.
Well, one of the highlights in my life was that in the 50s and the 60s, the police department sponsored, and the police officer was in charge that was named Walter Stout. I'll never forget his name. And they established a FOP softball league, and they furnished hats and shirts, and different neighborhoods had different colors. Like I was in North Richmond, we were Kelly Green. The Hibbert School area was a Cardinal Red, but we all had these teams. There's about 12, 13 teams, but they were coached and sponsored by the FOP, Fraternal Order of Police, and that was a tremendous way, a tremendous vehicle to draw us to other law enforcement officers, that we could see police officers as our friend and go to them as a friend in the time of need. I know young men who was headed for, back in those days, reform school, but they were able to sit down with the softball coach, with that police officer, and talk out the problems, and they was able to overcome the situation that they were headed towards. And I just hope and pray that sometime in the future, maybe not a softball league, but sometime in the future, that we could develop a program where our young people would be able to come to our police officers and look at them as friends, and not as enemies, but look at them as friends, and can go and get advice and keep them out of trouble. Chief, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I can be a little long-winded when it comes to community policing.
That's fine.
That is a passion project of mine. So I don't believe that a police agency can exist, at least not in a progressive or positive way, without a strong relationship with the community that it serves. So I actually go back. These aren't novel approaches. This has been around for quite some time. I know we talked about the Richmond Police Department being created in 1834, but the Metropolitan Police Department of London was created well before that by a guy named Sir Robert Peel. And he had 9 what he called Peelian principles. He's the founder of modern day policing. And one of those principles, which I take near and dear to my heart, is his second principle, and that is that the police is the community and the community is the police, meaning that we're the same. We can't exist without each other. Our codependency is mutually exclusive. It has to be a part of that. So, I think a lot of times for me, and as a police officer who has matured and went through different things, and that happens, right? I think young guys coming out, everybody except for me is a military veteran. You, Chief Weiler, is a military veteran, and then so is Detective Tudor. One of the things that we see a lot of is that our job is to serve. We are, as the most tangible, visible sign of governance in the United States of America. The police officer is, period. We represent that. So, as as young people, we come in, we start to do our job, do things. When we finally start to look at and say, as the most visible sign of governance of our people, how do we make sure that we're doing a good job doing that? How do we make sure that we're taking care of those in the community? Again, as Chief Weatherly said, we're slated to have 76 officers. Well, there's 37,000 people in Richmond. 76 police officers is not enough to see every nook and cranny of everything that's going on.
Well, let me ask you this. As far as on patrol, is there one individual to a car, or sometimes
Yes.
two?
Yeah, so our officers drive one per car. And part of that is...
And they all take home cars.
Yep. And part of that is looking at the history of policing. When we start to get bigger, we have the urban sprawl, being 37,000. It's more of a use of our resources that we have to put one officer in a car versus 2, right? Because now I can take that one officer and I can spread my resources much, much more. So, but throughout history, in doing that, we've gotten away from something that was very important, and that's the connection. That's the walking beats. That's the being a part of our community in a very centrally located area.
Are any officers on foot walking neighborhoods?
So we have what they would consider park and walks. Officers are able to get out and do that, but to exclusively say that all they do is patrol on foot, no, we do not have any of those.
And I would say that the call volume that we take, of course, depending on what day of the week, time of year, sometimes those call volumes just don't allow for officers to be out of the car. Because if you take a busy summer day, on second shift, they might run 130 calls with 6 or 7 officers. So,
full moon.
Yeah, so trying to get out of the car and do, the old foot patrol just doesn't always happen. They may want to, to be able to do that. They just aren't afforded it because of the nature of the call volume.
And one of the things that I'm looking on implementing is getting out in the neighborhoods itself. So I would like for Pat and some of the administration to get with me, and we just go out and walk the neighborhoods. Now that the weather's broke, the schools are out of session, you're going to have more people outside to engage with. We go out and we talk to them. We find out what their concerns are. Really get to know some of the people. Now, it's a big city. It's a bigger city, and it's just a handful of us. But if we don't try to engage, then we're not accomplishing anything.
Well, your predecessor, I sit down with him and Mayor Snow, and I think the chief of police was a female officer. I can't recall her name now, the assistant chief.
Yes.
And, but anyway, I presented them a program. This was right before COVID, the pandemic hit. and they kind of put the kibosh on everything. But I presented them a program that they seemed to be a little interested in. It was a walk and ride program where members of the clergy, like myself, with the clergy collar on, or would walk or ride with police officers. And a lot of times there were situations where, you know, they could step in and help and be a source of help to the police officers, not actually involved in anything. Maybe something like your trainees officer. Your training officer is limited to what he or she can do. So, but I was hoping that we could have a clergyman to either ride or walk with. I don't know how this would work insurance-wise and all that, but to ride and walk with officers and help to curb maybe any heated situations that could arise.
Yeah, so we have implemented something similar to that. It's a, in my words, it's a faith-based support group. So it's area faith-based leaders that have come together and are starting to implement their assistance, not just with the police department or any of the other city entities, but also the community. And we've utilized them just here within the last that month or so, where we've gotten them together and we've gone somewhere and we've just sat and talked and just really engaged with the people that we were there with.
In one of the cities that I pastored in, I've pastored all over Indiana. One of the cities that I pastored in, I had a program where I read someplace the statistics was that the rate of death for infants at car wrecks because of the lack of car seats was extremely high. And so I worked out a grant program with Sears where we got quite a few car seats, and but we had police officers that would come in and would train and would teach car safety and and show them videos of car safety and that type of thing. And then at the end of that session, we would give them a car seat. And so, you know, maybe sometime that we could have some type of program like that where we could get some grant money and help people in the community.
So we are actually looking into something like that, and I'll let Adam explain because he was more involved with it than I am, but
okay.
We'll let Adam explain what we have.
Well, my people are whispering in my ear telling me that the time is running out, and so I want to take this opportunity to thank you all for coming today. Don't be strangers. You're welcome to come back anytime.
Thank you.
Amen. And we just love to have you, and thank you for taking time out of your busy day to be with us. Beyond the Church Walls Outreach Ministry is on Sundays at 6 p.m. and Mondays at 10 a.m. And you can also watch it on our YouTube address. It's Beyond the Church Walls Richmond YouTube, Beyond the Church Walls Richmond YouTube. And may God be with you until we meet again. Chief, again, thank you for coming.